Hello and welcome back to All of Us Are Lost, a Lost retrospective podcast where we return 20 years later to the Island of Mysteries. I am Kat Hughes and I am joined as always by my co-host Andy. And Andy, what episode are we talking about today?
So today we're going to be discussing episode 9, Solitary. Fairly side-heavy episode, and one that, while maybe not moving the overall plot forward, certainly gives us a good background into what's happening with Side. But before we go into that, obviously tonight, for the first time, we're going to be joined by a couple of guests. Who are they, Kat?
Yes, so coming to Arrow Video on the 9th of December is a film called The Last Video Store. And today we are joined by one of the directors, Cody Kennedy, and one of the stars, Josh Lenner. Cody and Josh, welcome to All of Us Are Lost. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Hi.
I'm Cody. I'm one of the co-directors of The Last Video Store.
I'm Josh Lenner. I play Viper.
We're just hanging out in my living room right now.
In Vancouver, British Columbia.
Where it's really
Yes,
raining.
thank you. Oh well, we've got Storm Bert over here. I mean, it wouldn't have made your news, but we've got like Wales has got landslides and flooding, and yeah, so it's very windy. So hopefully, my fence has been known to like blow away during when we have windy season here, but hopefully that won't happen during this episode because that would not be fun. But yeah,
Do you have emergency rations and packs just in case?
Yeah.
I mean,
Tesco and Asda, the supermarkets, they can still deliver. Glasgow is fine.
Yeah.
It's not fine, it's horrible. But
Uber Eats.
Well, yeah, you've got snow there, haven't you?
I mean, Vancouver, it's just rain right now. We just get rain, but we might get like a week of snow in February, but the rest of Canada is pretty snowy, I think.
I mean, we did get hit with what is called a bomb cyclone. The winds were peak, like it was like 120 just on Vancouver Island. And then it kind of just hit the mainland as well. And power grid for BC Hydro went down. I think it was like 100,000 people that lost power.
So perfect time to stay inside and watch movies and escapism, all the turn a blind eye to the crazy stuff that's going on with weather.
we had the snow we had the snow. Now we've got a storm, which I've had to put cement bags on top of a trampoline to stop it from flying away. And my cat is outside, which I've just remembered. So I don't know how he's getting on, but I guess I'll find out if he flies past my window.
Because it'll just act like a parachute.
Yeah, pretty much.
I guess talking of escapism, the Last Video Store is, it's all about, video stores. I think we all were that generation that grew up like visiting video stores, working in video stores, hanging out in video stores. What was it for you both? What are your memories of, those trips to the video store, and what is it about these places that you think is so, important?
I guess for me, it was kind of the Friday night, couple friends or, the parent, and you go to the video store and you rent 3 movies that you're going to watch that night with your friends or siblings. And it's a hard decision to get those 3 movies in, and you're trying to find the coolest cover or something like that. And you end up renting these movies, and you go home, and it doesn't matter if they're trash. You just watched all 3 or all 4, or how many you rented. Like it was just something about that whole experience and feeling that felt kind of, I don't know, magical when you're younger, and just it didn't matter the quality of the film or whatnot. But yeah, that's what I remember the most, is enjoying that and renting the same thing over and over sometimes. But yeah, which would have been like Terminator 2 or Aliens. But
definitely Terminator 2 was rented almost every weekend. Here, they always had like the 7-day sort of like a special where you get 7 movies and you get them for a week. I was always late because returning them, I was always trying to like rewatch them as much as I could. And that was what really, gave me a lot of excitement going to a video store, not just like the smell of the popcorn and how sticky the carpet is, but just the actual atmosphere of walking through those doors, which is just glass, and then you walk through these aisles which are higher than me at the time, and looking at the titles, the actual like box art of every single one, it's just like, what is that? And realizing that none of the art is actually relative to the story. That's just something to entice you, and it worked. So I was able to rent all these movies and fell in love with them.
And with the set building, I was reading that you had to, due to sort of licensing laws and things, you had to make your own cases. Was that something you would reference from looking at older styles of tapes? Obviously, you had, like, the ones I can always remember would have been randomly Addams Family Values. For some reason, always seems to be stuck in my head from that time period, because I think it got, again, rented quite regularly when I was at a kind of young age. But then the Pennywise, the It TV movie was the one that I would never go near, because I was quite terrified when I was younger. The things. So using that as a reference, was that something that you've done in the sort of creation stages?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Yeah, for me, I always remember the Puppet Master VHS covers for some reason. I don't know if you guys remember those with the Puppet Master and I think what was his name? Blade, or number 2, which had like the guy who did the flames.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we had to create all like fake splines for it. A good friend of Josh's, Kevin, who created all the background splines and which was insane. But for a lot of the close-ups we did, and the close-ups in the film, we had a very specific fake movies created that you would see, and those were definitely like references to stuff that we from the video store and whatnot, just different versions of that. And yeah, that was fun. Stuff like Dragon Missions 2 or Gremloids, which was like a fake spline we had in one of the close-ups that was like an idea of like, what if gremlins were in space, but like done by Charles Band. So just a bunch of fake splines for movies we kind of created backstories for, but that's all you get in the movie itself is that. But we created good world building for it in our heads.
Yeah, there was actually. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go.
Oh, sorry. I was given homework, and a lot of those titles I had to like make up, and like we all took on that task where we all had to come up with certain different titles and different genres, because the sections in the video store were supposed to kind of play like a pivotal part of the story. But with time and money, it's what?
No, 100%. So like there was supposed to be signs in every section in the set that said like, this is the animal attacks, this is the horror, this is the survival.
Yeah,
but
creature feature.
Yeah, it was a bit of a behind the scenes story that the signs weren't finished in time. We were about like halfway through, first day of shooting. We kept pushing it. It was a big disappointment for us to not have those signs, because they were going to be all like lit up and stuff. But yeah, that is very important to us, was to have just the different sections for different genres, and that would play into the whole thing. But the movie does not have signs.
No, and it was fine. That's the beauty of filmmaking, is you have to move on and kind of work with what you have. And that's what we were able to do. But every single one of those titles on the shelf, and like Cody was saying, a very close friend of mine and roommate, Kevin Fung, he helped develop and graphic design all of those so that they were, not all the same, where it's just like cookie cutter on the shelf. They kind of reached out and popped. He's very good with the, how to attain the eye that way, where it's not just, repetition. It was actually, there was a lot of those titles, like we had to come up with like 200-300 different names, and a lot of the inspiration for me was actually like Critters, or what else, Robot Jocks, and there was a lot that we kind of just put together, and it wasn't just like grabbing the names, but it was like Cody was saying, like Gremloids, and that's obviously shout out to Gremlins, but Gremloids, it just kind of changed that title a little bit different, and also not get sued.
Yeah, and I mean anything that we had posters in the background, but we had permission to use the posters, and that's why you see some of them keep popping up again and again, which we wish we had more poster variety to put up, or just more. We always want more time. We would have made a bunch of custom posters and put them up, but
Yeah.
I'm sure every filmmaker says the same thing. More time.
I wish I had more time.
Obviously, you guys, started this journey, filming in Kevin's video store, but then when it came time to make the last video store, you then had to recreate it. I know we've discussed, the decoration, but what was that journey like, physically recreating? Because this wasn't something where, you got people in. This was like you guys all hands on deck, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, there was always this, I would always push for why don't we just shoot it in Kevin's real store? But logistically and learning a bit more about the process, it would have been quite impossible with what we wanted to do. But since we had shot so many short films in that store, we knew the layout quite well. And Tim, who was the other co-director and was also the production designer, is a quite talented craftsman when it comes to just designing sets and things. So he basically drew up the design for what this video store set was going to be, and it was essentially just the actual video store but enlarged and changed in certain areas. And then Josh also was pretty much the guy who built it. So these two guys recreated the video store as close as possible, but also changed so we could do what we wanted to do for each little section and set piece that we were creating. But yeah, I think that all happened really quick within a couple of days. We definitely felt like we wish we got a little bit more dirt and dust in there, as the real video store is quite dusty and feels very much like you're entering. We always compared it to Gremlins as well, entering that shop in the beginning. We always wanted to feel like you're entering this mystical shop to get a video. But yeah.
Yeah, it needed more basement vibes. There was not enough dust. It was too clean for Kevin's video store. But we definitely wanted to keep it where it was the same feeling of that store. And even when Yaya came to Edmonton, when she actually walked into the real video store, she's like, "Oh, I get it now. This is the video store, and this is what really inspired you guys to make the set the way that it is." And it was just like what Cody was saying, we had to make it a little bit bigger because obviously we have to get equipment and people in there. And when you're shooting a set, you kind of just have to make more room. And that was also the tricky thing too, because building the set, Hamilton Film Studios, they had the flats, but we still had to piece it all together. And then we had to buy the lumber to build the columns enough so that they could support lighting above the actors. And that's that for me, I take that very responsibly, because when there's weight above people, I have to make sure that one, it can hold it, two, that if it gets bumped into, that there's a safety precaution to it. Say someone bumps in that column, it's not going to tip over, it's going to be properly secured, as well as the equipment. Equipment's expensive, but if people were to get hurt on set under my watch, it would absolutely destroy me. So I 100% make sure, because there was initially what we were supposed to do is these metal beams. And I looked at Tim, I'm like, I don't think that's going to work, man. We need to actually use something where it'll be able to support certain pounds per, square inch. So it's just we have to make sure that it's structurally sound. And then that's what the other issue that we kind of had to work with. And that's what we did. And somehow it was like Benji said, we pulled a rabbit out of the hat and we made it happen, and they were able to rig it all up, and then we were able to shoot on time or on schedule, which was the skin of our teeth when it happened, but we were able to make it work, and everyone was absolutely passionate about it.
And with we've touched on the aesthetics there with the cases, now the building of the set. In terms of the inspirations for the characters who come out of the video cassette, you've got Castor Creeley, Prey Stalkers, Josh yourself playing Viper. Was there any sort of deliberation on what type of characters you wanted to use? Obviously, you've got the kind of alien /predator influence. you've got Jason, you've got with Viper, the kind of Stallone, Arnie, Chuck Norris, even sort of influences through that. Was there any other ones that you were hoping to maybe try, or was it always set on those characters from the off?
I think we came up with a lot of different things like throughout the years, like when trying to figure out the script. And I for the ones that were settled on, I think it was just like for Caster, having that slasher character we felt was iconic. We always joked about how, you know, Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees, he's wearing a hockey mask, but no one ever touches on hockey in any sort of way. So we're like, oh, it's perfect. It's hockey, Canadiana. Let's lean into that. Let's have this character. And we always like the idea of giving this kind of misunderstood slasher character a bit of an arc that try to make him like the good guy, right? So I think that was important for some of the selection of these characters. Same with Viper was, let's take your 80s action hero who's supposed to be the good guy, and let's make him like the bad guy by the end of it. And how do we find those arcs and switch these guys? So I think choosing those specific just worked really well for like the story overall. And then for the Prey Stalker, I mean, it was kind of like the fun Alien sort of shout out, since we're all fans of those kinds of movies. Originally, the Prey Stalker was supposed to be, the idea was when you saw this character in close-ups, like the idea was the Prey Stalker was going to become a practical creature and he was going to become dangerous because he was like real and he was on screen. And then like the wide shots of him, he was CG and he was easier to deal with. So we had this whole gag where like you can't get it like too close to you because it can actually harm you, kind of thing. But we just weren't able to weave that in properly in time. But yeah, I think those were all iconic things that we grew up with. You know, Jean-Claude Van Damme, 80s action, slasher characters, and it just kind of whittled down to those for just story structure. We definitely had been playing with the idea of puppets. We like puppets. I mean, our good friend Steve made Frankie Frico, so he kind of has that handled now. And I don't think we could have pulled that off as well as he did. But yeah, that's really for why those were selected.
Yeah, a lot of characters are definitely inspired, just like what Cody was saying, like for Prey Stalkers. Yeah, there's a little bit of aliens, but Predator as well, and those explained in the story, and it's something to, you know, because Yaya was supposed to play, you know, a new individual in the video store, and it's just like, what are those other movies? Yeah, those are other movies. And Kevin has this pitch about, you know, kind of just throwing these plots about how absurd they are, but how it just captivates you, and, you know, the absurdity behind all of it and how entertaining it can be. But you know, to your question there, about for Viper, it was a lot of, you know, inspirations, just like, you know, with Jean-Claude Van Damme, with Chuck Norris, a lot of the action stars. And it's interesting to think that, you know, back then they were kind of just shown as like the hero or the good guy, but, you know, when you actually really think about it, you know, they're kind of not that good of a person, you know. And that's really, you know, kind of what was very interesting to me, where they're not necessarily, you know, heroes. They're kind of just, you know, the anti-hero. And that's kind of what we're trying to go with. And hopefully the audience got the reference, and it's by far, they have. So that's means we did a good job, or I did a good job, and
Cody did a good job.
Cody did a good job. He directed and I played it, and he's like, I want you to do this, and I'm like, okay, I'll do that.
And how much training did go into, you know, preparing for a role like Viper? Because obviously, you know, he is this, you know, 80s action, you know, martial artist. You know, how much work went into the preparation for the role?
Tim literally stated where I had to do a 3-kick combo in order to audition for Viper, and I needed to do it properly without being out of balance. And he needed me in shape. So I had to gain 30 pounds of muscle, and I had to be more agile, and I had to quit drinking, quit smoking, and focus on being healthy. And that's exactly what I did for the year prior to the project, as I just worked on myself to put myself in that element. You know, it's just like, you have to kind of pay attention, because if you're going to be doing kicks on the cement floor wearing boots, they tend to not have friction, and someone could easily hurt themselves or someone else if they're going to be doing a kick. And there's actually a neat little instance in JCVD where, a guy's like about to do a kick because he was very inspired by Jean-Claude, and he's just like, I don't think I can do it. And Jean-Claude's just like, then don't do it. Don't do it. And then when he does it, he accidentally kicks the person in the face and it hurts them. So there's something like that can happen. So that was my mentality, which is like, I want to be able to have control over my body and my ability. And if I'm pushed to a certain limit where I'm just like, I can't do that, or I'll hurt myself, then I won't do it. So you have to be at least a little bit physically fit, as well as, mentally confident enough to be able to do some of the actions, to be an action star. Which, I think I'm like very on the bottom. And if I kept going for the next 10 years and trained, in martial arts, I'm sure, I could probably maybe become, A-list status, but nah, I'm born to be B-movie.
I can see you as like a John Wick sort of like henchman sort of guy, going toe to toe with someone like, Scott Adkins or, or Keanu or somebody.
Yeah. Maybe have like a very dramatic death. And then, John almost feels a little bit bad for him. And then I try and snake a kill, but then John's like, no, sorry.
I would watch that.
Right?
Watch that. Yeah. Just don't want to get kicked down those Paris stairs, though. That's the thing. Because then you have to get back up them and then again. And
stunt. Beautiful movie.
Yeah. And Cody, the Bill and Ted song says, two heads are better than one. How is it, having a co-director? How is it working with Tim?
Well, I mean, we met each other in high school. We've known each other for like a long time, and it's always been, we gotta make a movie. Let's make a movie. And then Josh, we also know from high school. A little bit after, so we've always been this kind of tripod of trying to like make a movie, and Josh was always the actor, and Tim and I were always trying to come up with the ideas and stuff. So I think just having that like inherent relationship since high school has made us like, we're able to find the point where we both can kind of connect, and because it can be tricky, right? Two creative people trying to figure out, where do you compromise, where do you, whatnot. How do you work together, and how do you make it to the end, essentially? And I think, we're kind of like an old married couples, but some people would describe us as, and sometimes when we're trying to hash something out, people are like watching and like, no, don't worry, that's just how they do it. But yeah, I think it's kind of just both of our brains kind of smashing together, and then this is what came out of it, and we are both still good. So yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard. Anyone could tell you that it's tricky, but I think you just learn a lot about communicating and trying to pull the best out of each other. And I think that's what we mainly did.
And I guess sort of like my sort of final question to do with, with the last video store. In the film, it's got creatures and characters from, films coming into the real world. But if you guys got, that Last Action Hero ticket, what films are you going into? Who are you going to hang out with? What's your plan?
I mean, I would probably want to go with like the most chilled, less dangerous kind of version, maybe like a weird like college comedy or something where I know I'm not going to get like killed by anybody or like harmed. Mm-hmm. If it's like me trying to survive something, I would go for something that is like a little bit easier to survive. But yeah,
I agree. I mean, that's the mortality reason behind that. But I would try and find a way to cheat it where I would be in like this cube of a room where there was different screens of like different genres of like whatever particular taste, or if just like it gets too intense in one, I can hop out and kind of slip into another one, and then maybe all these characters can kind of co-mingle and start mixing, and then it just ends up being this perfect storm of genres and characters, and then I make my own bloody world, and it's just this crazy atmosphere. But if I really were to answer it, it would probably be a fantasy, like not almost sci-fi. I love science fiction, but it's also, like Cody was saying, it could be terrifying, and it could be, I'd die in 2 seconds. So I'd probably choose something like Legend. Nice, beautiful landscape. Yeah, there's goblins and unicorns, and it's the heart of it, where it's just good versus evil, and I would like to be on that good side, fighting the good fight.
Yeah, I'll choose like
And let's say,
or something.
yeah,
Surf ninjas, like something like that. 3 ninjas, surf ninjas. Yeah.
But let's say, like, let's say you're not in peril. Who would
Okay.
you want most, like, who would you like to have like a beer with? Just like hang out and chat with.
Okay.
You want to go first?
Do I want to go first?
Your answer.
Who would I absolutely want to meet? I mean, who wouldn't want to meet John Wick? What you were saying, right? And we may can have some kind of discussion with him, or maybe befriend him. Because you'd want to have someone like that on your side.
I'd want to hang out with Frank Dukes and Jackson from Bloodsport in like Hong Kong.
Walking with them on the street.
They're like walking, getting chased by the police, and then like the day before they have to fight in the Bloodsport tournament. That would be my answer. 100%.
Yeah.
Like 80s Hong Kong. Kowloon still exists. Like, where the tournament's happening underneath. That's my answer. 100%.
The whole Kumite underneath, and in this completely dense, populated area where it's just people and homes. And
we'll have a drink with Jackson.
Ecological system. Yeah, that'd be pretty fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could top that, honestly. It's pretty good.
You want to come hang out too?
Yeah, I'll go hang out with Cody. Yeah. But again, I would try to find a way to cheat it, where I can just kind of.
So an all-star bar.
Do other movies, and grab a character from there and hang out with them. We can all watch a movie together.
Yeah. Sorted.
Who would you go with, Andy?
Well, I would also avoid the place of peril, because I could 100% convinced I would at least be in the first 2 people to die. So possibly off screen as well. I wouldn't even get a very glamorous death. Maybe Banky and Holden from Chasing Amy. They wouldn't be a bad 2 shout. Ben Affleck and Jason Lee.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I could stick Dante and Randall for any length of time. Or Brody from Mallrats. Or even Jane Silent Bob would just be chaos. He could probably die there as well. So maybe Holden and Banky Edwards for Chasing Amy. I think they'd be a good one, possibly. Or then, this could say one like Kyle Reese, but then he's just going to be a ball of paranoia, and just constantly looking over his shoulder. He might glass you as well. So, there's a chance. Those two might not be too bad.
To start eating some rats and stuff to survive.
Yeah.
Well,
we've got snacks.
Yeah, we could be in Kyle Reese's backstory. We'll be with him in the Resistance.
Yeah. There you go.
I'd fight by your side of the Resistance.
We'll try and work it out, because it's probably not far off now. The AI. But Kat, yourself, you get any ones?
I mean, I am going to live in the film Lord of Dogtown, because that's chill 70s California. So I'm having a very nice time. Emil Hirsch is there. I'm kind of set. But I like Josh's thing of like having a drink with with John Wick. I mean, the stories that guy has. He can tell you that impossible task that they tease throughout the series, but never actually go into the impossible task that he does that gets him out of the business so that he can go and marry his wife. I want to sit and have a beer and find out what that impossible task was.
Do you think, would they tell you though? That's the thing. Would they tell you the stories, or would they have to kill you? They did. It's just like.
I mean, there's worse ways to go. To be fair, there's worse ways to go than by death by Keanu.
Yeah. you accidentally choose the wrong movie, and the color from space will come through. And, oh no, we're all going mad.
I got 2 runner-ups. I got 2 more. Bill and Ted would be fun. The first one, just going with them, like being the third person. That's just kind of maybe seeking his way into the phone booth and then going through the different histories with them. Or like maybe Demolition Man, just to see that future, to hang out, go to Taco Bell. Or Pizza Hut, depending on which version of the movie, I guess.
Yeah. Whatever they promoted, Taco Bell or Pizza Hut.
Speaking, try a rat burger.
Yeah.
Best burger they've ever had. Yeah. I'd hang out with Sly for sure.
It's definitely it's really hard to really decipher what you would want to, or who you'd want to hang out with. But Bill and Ted's really good, or maybe some kind of like buddy cop, or like something like Point Break. Hang out with a younger version of Keanu.
Just be on the beach while you're surfing.
Just chilling.
Not like the bank robbery stuff. Just hang out on the beach.
Yeah, a real gnarly friggin' hair, man. Saved your life, bro.
Or like go play football on that cool like party they go to. Just be a guest at the party.
Yeah. Freaking hang out with Maverick from Top Gun.
Yeah.
Now, again, on the beach,
volleyball.
we would encounter through Point Break.
Yeah.
Maverick while they're playing, some greasy volleyball.
So that's the amalgamation.
Then
further down,
and then is the last video store's Viper playing volleyball against Top Gun's Viper?
There we go.
I think in reality,
Viper clash.
You would come up and you'd be like, "Hey, can I play with you guys?" And they'd be like, "Whoa, like I don't know."
I don't know. You seem like a loose cannon.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's okay. I got it.
Your movie's in the discount bin. Like I don't know. You got to sell this many copies and play volleyball with us.
Yeah.
You're like no. You got to go play with that
competition of sales.
Yeah. You got to play with like the other
box office hit.
C grade.
Just not taking that very well either. You can imagine that.
Very
well.
But then Viper's got something to prove.
That's right. You can work your way onto that court. You got to play with who would be on your court like volleyball. What other action heroes would be in that category?
Michael Dudikoff.
Yeah.
Chuck Norris.
Like kind of making his way to the next one. But.
Well, I'm intimidated and obviously jealous of Michael because Michael's rising to the top a lot faster than I am.
So I guess obviously this is a lost podcast, so I guess sort of moving on slightly, what was your guys what was your first experience with the television show? Were you were a watcher immediately? Did you come to it later? Have you ever seen it?
I mean, I watched like when it came out, so it's been a while. I honestly did not finish the entire series, but I did. I think. I mean, at that time, they're just so good at cliffhangers and Lost, and just the J.J. Abrams mystery box. So that was kind of the first experience, was like watching that and then kind of learning about him, and then kind of like, oh, like he's so good at like pulling you in and wanting you to continue, and just like the vibe of the survivors on the island. I like stuff like that. So that's kind of, for me, was actually back in like 2009, 2010ish, during that time. Yeah, Josh.
I was in certain circles where a lot of people talked about it. I caught it on television every now and then, but it was interesting because it didn't really pique my interest at the time. But as people were talking about it, I kind of, all right, I'll check it out. And I, periodically, was able to catch certain episodes, and I'm just like, oh, that was really cool. That was really interesting. But there was a lot of my friends that were really into it, where they were just like, they're very involved with a lot of the cliffhangers that Cody was saying, and a lot of the writing is very like almost all over the place, but it was almost kind of just went into this sloppy mess where it almost made sense, and trying to follow it, but I never really got that deep into it. But I did enjoy. I think it was like the first 2 seasons, And then I was just like, I'm not invested enough with a lot of the characters, and I feel like it almost was like it was trying to lie to me, to captivate me for just a hook at the end of an episode, just to really get the viewership, which was insane. I remember reading up about how some of these episodes was like 17 million people are like catching into this, and this is huge. Like, this is a lot of people all watching these episodes, and you have to really give it to them. That's a huge success for everyone that was involved, all the people that were performing, all the producers, and obviously JJ. That's very very big moment for everyone's point in their life.
It's hard not to like Matthew Fox though. He's
So
he's awesome.
He's Racer X, man.
We've spoke about it before, just that influence on TV at the time that it had. It's sort of event television now, as we know it, is very different. And I think a lot of that could have came from Lost. Now it's 8 to 10 episodes maybe now, but Lost was that full 24 certainly for the first few years. And it was just a cultural thing that, even like Josh, as you said, maybe you hadn't been into it as much, but everyone knew about it. And that was before the age of full-on, like, social media wasn't at its peak. Online advertising certainly wasn't as easily accessible for everyone, but everyone knew it. Like, even the people that didn't like it would have known about Lost.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it was huge, and even going to other movies where even in this episode, I don't remember the main actor's name, but Saeed, the character.
Yeah.
That main actor, I remember when
he was awesome. He's awesome.
He's a brilliant performer. But I remember when we went to go watch Planet Terror.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, that's Saeed," and they're all like clapping and excited. And I'm just like, "Oh yeah, that's right." And he was also very good looking individual, and really a very fun performer. It was a very fun performance in that film, and I'm just like, oh, it's like it was different to see from a serious tone of Lost, and then in this kind of movie where obviously his face gets dropped onto some testicles that were cut and left in a jar by one of the characters. Wow. But it's really interesting to see that range, that that individual willing to go into this kind of grindhouse movie from such a serious television series.
Yeah. What I like about Naveen Andrews is, he's a proper Cockney Londoner, and yet his accent in this is so perfect that you fully believe in this character and his history, as an interrogator for the Iraq army. It's so. I mean, I think the English actors, are known for their ability at tricking other countries with their accents, but I think him as Saeed, I think he even tricked he tricked me. As I remember the first time I saw him in an interview and he was all like apples and pears, and I was like, what? What?
Yeah.
That's not Saeed.
I did not know that.
No, I can totally relate, and that was actually very impressive. And also, like his character was, you were saying, wasn't he like in the Gulf War or something like that? And it's very interesting because that's probably something that he grew up with, and it was able to kind of know a little bit more history about it for his character.
Yeah, it's one of the, again, something we touched on earlier episodes, the flashbacks playing such an integral part in it, and I think seeing his background. Before we introduced you on this episode, I touched on it briefly, saying that the overall story doesn't really get developed hugely in terms of what's going on in the island. The main theme of that is, or the kind of B plot, is Hurley is making a golf course, but what we get to find out is the kind of, there's been a level of kind of mystery about Side. I don't know if you saw the episode previously. He decides he has to leave because he's tortured someone, and it's something that he didn't want to have to do again. So seeing how he's went from being the King's, is it the King's Guard? I can't remember exactly what they're called. to now actually feeling that on an emotional level, whereas before it was just an everyday kind of occurrence for him. And he's now moved on, and he's literally finding himself on the island and finding other people. Of course, in the case of the French Signal, which is again something else that's been continuing on by Daniel Russo, which is another interesting part moving on.
Yeah. No, I think that. Yeah, that's I like the idea that they're building. They're playing golf because it's like escapism, right? They need to find something to escape. If they had like some VHS tapes and a TV, they could do that, but they don't. So they have to play golf, and it's just I love that. And when you can kind of contrast these two, like you said, like a plot, we're getting this intense backstory of Samid and kind of learning about him, and this is like his episode, and then we get to cut back to them, playing golf and the back and forth. I think the way they like it was the right vehicle, I guess, for them to show his backstory and just how they did that within the plot of him getting kidnapped by Danielle and kind of slightly getting someone interrogated, and then we're seeing him what he had was supposed to do, and I think that was cool. And this is me like jumping into this. I hadn't seen it for a while, so it was kind of refreshing to be like, oh yeah, this show still slaps.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. Like I don't know too much about all the lore, but yeah, I was able to just like kind of get a rough rundown and watch certain parts of it. And it was interesting to see, just like what Cody was saying, where he was being tortured, and you get a lot of backstory about him. And then even in that moment where he's fixing this little gadget for Danielle,
music box.
Yeah, the music box, and he was able to like kind of take away the tool and try and use his expertise to get out of this situation. And it was very interesting to see, because he still has that training and still able to want that to escape. So that's really what the whole episode was like, this escapism, where it was like people playing golf, they want to escape their reality, where it's just like he's trying to escape out of the situation. So it was very interesting, dynamic, where it was like all characters were experiencing that.
Yeah. I just also, I enjoy Danielle Rousseau. She is my Sarah Connor on the island. She's got a bit of the Linda Hamilton about her. She's been surviving, in like this weird bunker thing for like the last 16 years. She's toughened up, but again, she's got that disconnect, as we find, from her child. She had a child, but where is that child? It's been taken by these people. And so yeah, as a Sarah Connor stan, I quite enjoy getting to meet this woman who up to this point has just been a voice on a radio signal.
Yeah, and the fact as well, she's an unreliable narrator is quite an interesting twist. You're going to have had some sort of issues if you've been on the island for 16 years, I think is the length of time that she's supposed to have been there. We know that she's missing, her son's missing. We know that a character's missing, who we later find out to be her child. We also know that she was there with a science expedition that has crashed onto the island, and that they aren't there anymore. It transpires later on that she feels she just suggests they were ill, and there's talk of the others in the woods, but then is she hallucinating because she has been driven mad by being so solitary for this whole kind of stretch of time. Interesting going from that unreliable narrator thing, and you can see the character aside trying to kind of pick away at her with certain questions, maybe using these old tactics from the army, and actually not being completely successful really up until the end. It seems like he's fighting batting up against a brick wall initially with Russo. But it's an interesting dynamic going from that side of it.
Yeah. And 16 years is a long time for her to be like in solitaire. I think she handles it pretty well, I guess, but still, yeah.
I know. I think the movies she would have missed out on in that whole time. No escapism at all there. There'd been no Terminator 2 if it's the right time. There would have been She would have missed Alien versus Predator, so that's maybe not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be guilty for it. I love this universe.
Oh, I rewatched them recently. That's a whole other story.
I can go all day on the universe.
But the although we said the episode doesn't necessarily push stuff forward too much, there is this mention of Black Rock, which will become something much bigger in the world of Lost, and there is this virus, and like Andy was saying, there is this, is she telling the truth, is she not, it's like, were they sick, were they really sick? But because they didn't all die of a sickness. In some cases she thought they were sick, so she killed them. So it's that, how much can he trust anything that she says? And there's that very real threat at any minute Saeed could end up dead because she could perceive him as being ill. If he'd have sneezed, he would have not made it out of there.
Yeah, because in her mind, she's doing him a favor, and just like she was doing all those other people a favor, sort of just like a piece of mercy. And what that really does to one's psyche. It's something that can really burden, especially if you were to take a life and then live with that for how long? Like, take its toll.
She mentions, and again, this is something kind of similar to Black Rock, not as far in the future, but she mentions the others, which lead to becoming a very integral part of the kind of Lost mythos. And we do get a look at someone who we're very unfamiliar with in the interaction between Locke, Walt, and another character called Ethan, who's very sinister and very. I certainly didn't trust him first viewing, and also a cat told me earlier on Tom Cruise's cousin, which I wasn't aware of either.
That's a
new thing, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So character who's never been in any episode gets one line, disappears for the rest of the episode. But yeah, an interesting character coming forward as well, and looking forward to seeing that.
But it's not the fact that he only gets one line. It's the fact that everybody just acts like, oh, no, it's Ethan. Ethan. We know Ethan. Like, they've been there for like 12 days, and we've been watching up until this point, and we've never seen Ethan. John Locke has always been in the wilderness, hunter man on his own, or like using Charlie as bait. And suddenly he's got Ethan, who is equally skilled at hunting, and it's like John's found a friend, which is quite sweet. But also the audience, have been watching it for the previous 8 episodes, are like, who is this guy? And then juxtaposing that with Russo talking about others, it does, I think, immediately sort of signpost that maybe this guy is not all right.
Yeah.
Not trustworthy or reliable.
No. I think another part for Saeed is, again, we're talking about him developing as a character, and we see him with someone from his past in Nadia, a picture that he's been carrying about. We find out through his interactions with Russo that she's dead. Doesn't mention how. We don't find out in this episode. But it's like we've said, especially in these early episodes, there's a trail of breadcrumbs getting laid everywhere, like the others getting mentioned, like ending on, again, a cliffhanger with possible whispers from the woods, with the elements of who is Ethan, and all these little bits and pieces. And the one thing I did find strange though was, Ethan gets that one line, but there's also Hypochondriac Man who doesn't even get a name, and he's just constantly berating Jack and chasing after him. But he might have a character name in the list. I didn't bother looking through the credits to double check it. I probably should have, but poor guy doesn't even get a name check or nothing. They don't know his name, even though he's clearly a pain in the ass for Jack, and probably has been for 12 days.
Yeah.
Just Hypochondriac Man. Is that the name in the credits, or or he's not even like
not sure. It could be.
I just have to
in the list.
They have like the giant cable kind of coming out of
I
the
was
ocean.
just gonna ask that. What is up with the cable going in the ocean?
Wait a second.
So I guess again, I've mentioned this before as well. I've forgotten so much about this, even though I've watched it all the way through 2 or 3 times, maybe definitely 2, maybe 3. so much I've forgotten about this, and a lot of things happening early on that I thought happened much later. So there's a few reveals in earlier episodes. And the cable in the ocean, it must lead somewhere, but I don't know where. And I'm sure it goes to, obviously it goes to Russo's den, but where's the other end? It's got a plug. It's a big plug in the sea.
Energy has to come from somewhere.
Yeah. So I'm sure we'll find out. If we don't, that could be one of the cliffhangers, one of the threads left dangling that never gets answered.
Yeah.
I also enjoy like during the golf when they're all playing the golf game and they're talking about
Yeah.
we need a break from this, that polar bears, and Michael's like polar bears, and then Charlie's like you didn't hear about the polar bears. So even amongst this group, like not everybody is aware of all of this weird shit that they are dealing with, which I quite enjoy. Because there's just so much going on. There's so much happening. There's smoke. There's monsters in the woods. There's a virus. There's weird cables. It's
Well, I even like the reaction of Saeed, where it's just like, hopefully it's bears or something like that, where it's just like, hopefully, like what?
Yeah.
What else is out there?
The bears have, and I can imagine as well that's maybe we've spoke about Hurley being a sort of a vessel for the audience watching. That interaction between Charlie and Michael discussing the polar bear, you can imagine having a conversation with your friends and someone overhears you talking about a certain episode of Lost, and you're talking about a tropical island with polar bears. That kind of mirrors how people might react to you talking about it as well.
Yeah. I think my brain goes in two different places when I think tropical polar bears. Like, wait, what?
Yeah. Well, we had a discussion about how it might have got there, which could have floated on an iceberg. Could have been something that could be aliens. Not sure.
hey, if my mum's got anything to do with it, it's aliens. Aliens for everything.
They accidentally dropped the polar bear.
Just left the hatch open at the back as they're flying away.
Definitely.
Whatever, it'll survive. It's got people there to eat.
Life finds a way.
Well, nice. And then it could be dinosaurs. Hurley has asked, is there dinosaurs in the jungle? Yeah.
Or it's just like a certain area, it's just kind of separated from the rest of the world. This is just,
like the Galapagos Islands.
Yeah, like how the continental shift happened. It's just like that's, and a lot of it is actually present today, where it's where a lot of things kind of when it all ripped apart, there's just a lot of, from Africa to South America, and there's a lot of, remnants of how a lot of species, came to be. And it's just, and there's no possible way for a polar bear. That's why they chose it, because it just doesn't make any sense why that polar bear is there.
Yeah. Could be an eccentric billionaire's pet project.
Yeah. But I can imagine, there'd be a lot of relative, species that can, it be, somewhat in that area. But if it could, maybe adapt in a certain way, probably wouldn't have white fur.
No.
Maybe a whole bunch of, maybe it'll just like mutate in a certain sense, where it can climb trees a little bit more and grow wings and fly. That's terrifying.
Yeah, I think something that this episode does really well is it kind of puts a bit of an end to sort of like the first chapter of the series, with one of the early mysteries is who has sent the signal, who is this woman. Meeting Russo, we kind of put that in place, and now at the same time we've had this mention of the others, and that's taken us into the next chapter. So I think that's something that this episode does quite nicely. It kind of puts to bed a lot of the things that we've seen, like even Sawyer, who's been very much on the outs with everybody since day one. He, joins in with the golf, like puts a bet on Jack, and it's kind of a nice. I mean, we're episode 9 of 24, so we are kind of coming to like the quarter-way marks. I think it's kind of drawing a line in the sand, and then moving on to the next chapter, which is you don't realize when you're first watching it back, but when you kind of know where it's going, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, we've tied this little bit up, and now let's get into this other bit.
Yeah, especially with the Sawyer stuff as well, with it being he's now softening a little bit. Kate's found out a bit more about him from previous. And he understands that he can understand it's going to take a lot of work for him to become accepted, because he has been a massive dick for the entirety of this show so far. And the fact that he obviously is still slightly standoffish as well, which he's going to be. But even Boone, who he had previously beaten to a pulp, is willing just for that escapism to take him on the bet. It's like, we need the sun cream, we have to do this. But it is that bridge building, that softening between Sawyer and Jack. Even seems to have a little bit of maybe happiness that Sawyer's getting involved. That isn't the right word, but there does seem to be maybe a relief in his face when he sees Sawyer, maybe again softening his stance to the whole group. And then having Hurley come up with it as well was just great, because he's just the best.
Josh, you mentioned sort of at the beginning that you kind of just dipped in and out to a degree of Lost. Our editor, Rob, has never seen a single episode of Lost, and he is basically watching Lost, editing this podcast. So what is it like just dipping in and out of this program? Because I think Rob's going mad, being like, polar bears, smoke, what's happening?
I mean, I not like, I just jumped into this episode. I didn't really build up to it. I sort of just like delved in, and I was just like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. But it's sort of, piquing my interest a little bit, where I do want to know where a lot of the story structure is going, especially for some of the characters. So it's a little confusing at first, because I remember bits and pieces and bits and bobs here, but it's just sort of it's still piquing my interest. Like, I feel that same kind of initial reaction that I did when it first came out, where it's just like, I want to know where it's going, I want to know what's happening. And it is slightly confusing, but it's still very intriguing. And I'm sort of like, that's what the title of the show is called, is just, I'm lost.
You're lost.
But I want to know what's going on.
The characters
and Cody, yeah. I was going to ask Cody, I was going to ask you, at what point did you stop? Because you said that you didn't, get all the way through. At what point did you stop?
I mean, honestly, like only a couple seasons in, like quite a long time ago. So like, I jumped into this episode without like really interacting with it for a long time. I did the same thing with Battlestar Galactica, actually. Like, I was pretty intense into that, and then I had recently started watching it again, and it was just like, oh my god, like, I'm remembering all these things. So for like this, like jumping into this episode, it was kind of like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I remember. It's like the characters are so good, like the actors are super solid, and just regardless of the situation that they're put in, I think it just does so well grounding everybody, so you can kind of bring in all this not crazy, but just all these elements where I think the characters just pull you. And so for this kind of being like the Samid episode, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, like, he's really good, this is fun, I kind of want to jump back into this now, and keep watching, because it's just like so well performed. And again, just like remembering how grounded these characters were kind of like written, you can kind of put them in this scenario, because if that doesn't hold up, then you know what I mean. It's like, it's high concept, but it's also it's character driven high concept.
And without maybe spoiling anything, Cody, maybe more for yourself, do you know where it goes? Do you know how things ended? I know there's a lot of controversy about the finale, and we discussed that in our kind of pilot episode. Do you know how it goes? So, because we're talking, this is like all pre-social media, right? So in a way, it hasn't been spoiled for me, like where like things go at the very end. Like, I do know to a degree some things, like with like, a smoke thing creature, but like, no, in a way it's kind of cool, because again, since this is kind of pre-social media, a lot of it isn't spoiled for me. So I feel like this is an opportunity for me to maybe jump back into a show where I can watch it and it's not like spoiled in a weird way, like for where it goes, further in. So, but to answer your question, I do not.
I do.
That's always good. You do?
Yeah, so he's on.
Yeah, like the circles that I was in, they were watching it religiously, and so I got the breakdown of like certain episodes, and then when they wanted to rewatch it, I was kind of there, or I'd be making food, and I would, kind of, the person that I was seeing at the time was very heavily into it, so it kind of got all the information from a lot of the episodes and what they were experiencing as they were watching it. So I sort of was able to get some of the backstory, and then when it all ended, this is just like you were saying, Cody, when social media wasn't as big, but it was still there. Like people would still be on chat rooms and stuff like that. And I do remember when there was a discussion about the conclusion of the series, and a lot of people were just like, it was a heated debate because people felt like there was more to it. There was something else rather than just okay, bye.
But I mean, historically, I think like any series that, it's just too hard. You'll never make people happy. I mean,
I was happy with the end of Buffy.
Mass Effect trilogy, like it's too hard. The creators put themselves into a weird situation where they're like, okay, let's end it. Everyone's going to hate us. It doesn't matter what we do. As soon as you reveal everything, it will always disappoint.
I disagree. It's just that people just want a good story told. And if you can give them some kind of...
Well, it's the mystery box, though.
But still, it's give them a proper conclusion for this character where that they've been following them for years, that they'll have a proper outro, and they'll be okay. Or maybe they died. Sweet. Good. That's where they were going to be directing, or to the direction anyway. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Tell a good story. That's all I want. I don't care about gimmicks or key jangling. I'm not a cat.
Well, we all are.
I am kind of.
Yeah. Is that someone that's watched Game of Thrones recently at all? Because that's how I reacted to that. But anyway, that's again a whole other story.
That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you, Josh and Cody, for joining us. Maybe at some point, if ever you have downtime, you might, Josh, watch and Cody rewatch to the end. But going back to the last video store, it's releasing in the UK by Arrow Videos on the 9th of December. What are people going to get on that disc? Because this isn't just the film and there you go. This is quite heavily curated, right?
Yeah, I think it's important that for this being a physical release, since a big part of us was buying movies, video stores, but also just watching special features and things like that. So it's a cool package. It comes with a little booklet. There's some written work in there, which we have no idea what it is, but we're excited to experience that. There's a couple segments that we attempted to make the feature film of the last video store back in like 2014, where Josh is playing a much different character. So there's a bunch of scenes that were cut together from that attempt that are on there, so you can kind of get an idea of some very early version of this, which we actually also built a set for. Battle Bear that's the first time we had a shout out to Battle Bear, which was before Cocaine Bear, just to throw that out there, because Cocaine Bear came out and we're like, fuck, we have a fake movie in the video store that's so close to that, but we did this in like 2014. Anyways, and then there's a bunch of short films on the disc as well that we had done previously, just the shows, and a bunch of behind the scenes videos of the process. I think you're going to see Josh building the set. There's some footage of Josh building the set with Kevin, the two actors just alone putting up the set. So there's a lot of fun just behind the scenes and content about the making of the movie.
And also beautiful box art cover. I was completely blown away when I saw that. That was something that really captivated me. And I really want to give a shout out to everyone involved through Arrow. But my apologies if I, can't remember all the names. I can barely remember mine getting out of bed. But I want to say, a huge thank you to everyone that's supported and, really given, this movie a chance. Is it perfect? No, No, but what matters is that it has that heart and love, and it tries to really captivate that feeling that people, when you go into a video store, when you have that nostalgia and love and appreciation for hard media, that the copy of holding it in your hand and then putting it in the machine and hearing the or the tape being eaten, you got to pull the damn thing out and you got to wheel the thing back in. It's something that really is in the heart of a lot of people in our generation that have grown up with that, even, still a little bit older, still a little bit younger. It's almost like vinyl where, VHS kind of has that resurgence. It's hard to find, but it's out there still. And you just have to look for it. It's not just in your face like Blockbuster, get your video now this weekend. And then it's something that you really want to, get a hold of. And it's also just, it just inspires. It's very inspiring, and I really want to, express and share that with a lot of people out there.
And on that note, there is a Canadian physical release of it that will come out in like February/March by Black Fawn, which are great, and they're actually releasing a VHS of it, so you can watch it on VHS, which was a cool.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to put in the show notes links to the Canadian pre-order and to the UK release. But where should people be looking socially for information about the film? Would it be through Black Fawn, or do you have any other socials that they can follow along on?
Yeah, so we don't actually. There's no social media for the movie itself as like its own page. You could find Action Jackson on Instagram, or Kevin DVD Lobby DVD, like he will post like updates of it, but Black Fawn, there should be a link for Black Fawn to bring you to their release of it, which is pretty cool. They have that version does have a commentary with all of us on it, just because the Arrow disc we weren't able to get that in time, but there's commentary on the Arrow disc, so there's different versions. And then the Arrow link to the Arrow website as well.
Arrow UK and US. And then Black Fawn is through Canada, and they have their Christmas sale where you get a whole bunch of stuff with it, not just the VHS, but you get like a membership card, I think some stickers and some vinyl.
I think they're gonna do like a little caster kind of figure, like a little cardboard caster, which is cool.
That's so cute. Again, a huge shout out to everyone involved. I really couldn't believe when I saw this happening. So Black Fawn and Arrow Video.
Nice. Well, thank you guys so much.
Maybe we can make another one.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yes. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, people for tuning in and giving us a watch and listen. We'll be back next time where we're going to be delving into Ethan and Claire and getting into this whole other storyline. Until then, you can find myself. I'm on Blue Sky at cathughes.bsky.social or on Instagram and Letterboxd at Gizmo Shikari. And Andy, where can people follow along with you?
I'm in Blue Sky now at Nowhere Andy with all the trimmings at the end. Same with the Bad Place. I'm also on that. And again, thanks guys for joining us, and thanks for everyone for listening and watching. We're back next time with Raised by Another and All the Best Cowboys Have Daddy Issues, which sounds an interesting title for an episode. But look forward to those.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Andy. Really appreciate it. And thank you, audience, for listening to me ramble on about art media. Love you.
Cheers.